July 17th, 2021. This is Black Sheep Conqueror. Welcome. Welcome indeed. Man, first off, I want to say Yeshua HaMashiach is my Lord and my Savior. All this channel, whatever this is, however much information gets transmitted to people, all glory to the Most High. Sir, I'm just simply trying to share everything that I've learned. Specifically regarding what is the line between New Age Christianity, magic, spiritualism, spirituality, spirit science, which I would say is more New Agey kind of approach to spirituality, and the world at large. A lot of conspiracy theories that get mocked by much of the mainstream people that actually I have enough evidence to right now where, you know what, I can compile it and make sense of it and explain the justs of like why and what and how. Specifically black sheep, man, that refers to the black sheep of the family, the scapegoats, having to do with narcissistic upbringings, having to deal with sociopaths, psychopaths, bipolar disorder, NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, and then more or less dealing with it, conquering it. More, not just, I see way too many YouTube channels meant to be victims of all this kind of stuff, and no, the Lord didn't make us to be a victim. We are more than conquerors. Through Christ who loved us, through Him who loved us. Loves us. Not past, present tense. He still does love us. He's still alive. Yeshua HaMashiach, man, the one and only begotten Son of the Lord Most High. And despite the fact that people tried, that the New Age spiritual teachers, spiritual gurus tried to argue that he's just like the Buddha, just like Gandhi, just like Muhammad, just like all these other prophets, spiritual teachers that came through and apparently revolutionized the world in their thinking. They try to put him as the same. They call him an ascended master, much like, hell, I don't even know. I don't even follow much of it. There's I learned enough of it to kind of grasp the idea of where they're coming from, and man, for the most part, a lot of it was deceitful. I'm also here to talk about Enoch, the specific part in the beginning where it talks about the end days with the elect and the righteous, and they'll both be living on this earth in those times. And that deception will be great, so great that even the elect should be deceived. Man, I'm here to specifically talk about those things and get a lot of discrepancies cleared up, because there is plenty of gaslighted reasons for why. Why does it even matter? Why do we even care? I mean, I can still go about my life like it doesn't matter anyways, right? So, I mean, what the fuck? No, I want to share why a lot of that stuff really does matter. Specifically dealing with Earth and the Cabal, which is essentially a mafia group, a gang, which orchestrates and runs the entire world. Which, I mean, I would say if you found this channel, you're already well aware of the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and Soros, and that they've been funding every war since the French Revolution. Both sides of every war since the French Revolution. They antagonize this guy, they antagonize that guy, and they pay both of them. And they put them at odds with each other and tell them to go fight. And then they control the mainstream media, they control the marketing, they control the narrative that continuously puts fear and manipulation into the minds of the people. And when you realize, man, they controlled both sides, and essentially World War II, man, with Hitler and such, Hitler came out of Argentina just out of nowhere. He was funded by the Vatican and did all sorts of sick human experiments. He wasn't concerned about atomic research. He was concerned about chemical and biological weapons. At the time, ABCs, that was the new thing, the highest, the best technology that everyone wanted to know in the world was atomic, biochemical, or biological and chemical. Biological and chemical, I feel, are both much the same in terms of how can we take chemicals to affect biology, to affect populations, get into the water supply, get into the air supply, get into the food supply, in order to control, or rather dominate. However, Germany was extremely aggressive, overt, in the way that they wished to dominate the world. They made it very clear that we are going to, by force, militarily take over the world. And, well, we know that ended. But then we also know that we had Nuremberg trials where the scientists were taken out, and Operation Paperclip meant the scientists went and were employed by the United States and the CIA and NASA. And that's when MK Ultra started. MK Ultra has to do greatly with the mind control processes, the subliminal programming. Much about that same time, NASA was created, Walt Disney was created. They're all Freemasons. I don't know necessarily about the Nazi scientists, but I know Disney was. And, I can't remember a couple of other people, man. He was part of Hollywood, man. He's well into Hollywood. Hollywood, actually, the funny thing about Hollywood is the holly tree. Back in the earlier times, the holly tree was what they would make their wands out of, their staffs. And that would be, their magic wand would be made out of the holly tree because that was what produced magic. That was their belief. The holly tree. So Hollywood is a reference straight to producing magic. And then we have Disney. His first movie was Fantasia. Well, his first main movie was Fantasia. I guess he had a couple other, his little Steamboat Willie, I think was his official first one. But he got big into the animation, but Fantasia, that was the big magic, that was the big main publicly available movie. And then we all know plenty of all the sex magic type, sex subliminal messaging put into Lion King, Little Mermaid, all the Pocahontas, Cinderella, man, all of those Disney classics. And the commercials that were at the beginning of all those movies always promoted more of the Disney classics and all the magical world of Disney. And now we have Disney World, Disneyland, man. You go there to have a science, to have a magical experience, and essentially they're all trying to get us to worship ourselves. Yeah, they want us to worship ourselves. They want us to worship the magnificence of the human mind. Self-worship, man. It goes all the way back even to Helena Blavatsky and Aleister Crowley, leader of the Satanist Church. Helena Blavatsky, I don't remember if their times were actually about, I'm pretty sure they were alive at about the same span. I don't actually remember specifically, but Helena Blavatsky wrote things specifically about Lucifer being the one true God, because Lucifer set man free from the imprisonment of the ideal version of what God wanted us to be in the Garden of Eden. And allegedly Lucifer set man free from this, from that bondage, that lack of free will. Even though when God put us here, He gave us free will. Yes, He gave us orders, but it was our choice to leave. And if we left, man, we had to face the consequences. I mean, that's still life now, man. We have free will. If we face the consequences of either choosing to do something or deciding not to do something, because either one, man, we made a decision. There's still consequences of that decision. There's consequences for taking action. There's consequences for taking no action. And sometimes, man, it's all worth it. Sometimes it's all a matter of the situation, the time at hand. But when it comes to the spiritual world, man, a lot of that's eternal. But then I've found things on Cryon. Some of what he teaches actually, in a sense, is it feels true. Then there's other aspects of it where it kind of comes off in a way where I don't know exactly whether I agree with this, because the devil masquerades as an angel of light, and may come down and tell you all the great sugar sweet things you want to hear. And that's the thing, man. In the end times, we're going to have itching ears, and everyone's going to be lusting after the little things that itch their flesh the way that they need it to, so that they can justify their lifestyle in a way to where it's perfectly okay in the eyes of the God that they want to idealize. That's not how God is, man. Our God's a jealous God. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Yohe-Wahe. Yohe-Wahe, the unspeakable name of the Most High. YHVH. It's another teacher who goes a little more in depth into giving the pre-Canaanite Hebrew. And actually, Hebrew, when you start breaking down a lot of those words, when you start going into the etymology of words and the English translation back into the Hebrew translation or back into the Greek translation, depending on which testament you're talking about, there's a lot more to it than simply the English translation. And what I find in much of mainstream churches is that they take a very jagged perspective on a certain piece of the English translation while neglecting to imply the other. I don't know, the whole book is meant to, God is the same today, yesterday, and forevermore. And God does not lie, and God does not contradict himself. So that entire book, no matter what you read in it, if you try to make an argument where this contradicts that, man, you're probably misreading it, because many of the stories are parables, many of them are metaphors meant to describe the human condition, meant to give you a better understanding, a wisdom, a greater perspective, and almost enlightening of the human condition. The issue is that the world at large, the people who control the world, the occultists, elitists, the cabal, the ones who feel like they're in charge, man, they consider themselves enlightened ones. Occult means hidden. They believe that their knowledge cannot and shall not be shared with the masses. That is why they lurk in the shadows. Followers of the occult call themselves the Illuminati, which equals the enlightened or revealed ones, the illuminated ones. They consider like their third eye has opened. They're aware of the light. They're open to the light, and because they are enlightened, apparently because they worship Lucifer, that they therefore have the truth. But man, the God himself, man, if your darkness you believe is truth, man, how dark is that darkness? If you believe your darkness is light, man, how dark is that darkness? And they have to stay in the dark. That's why they're scared of having all this stuff get revealed right now. That's why they're running around in fear right now. That's why they're trying to hide everything. That's why they lie to us. That's why they use the mainstream media to push certain agendas and tell stories from certain perspectives to where, and even NASA, man, once all that started, man, the Antarctic Treaty happened in the 50s, right after World War II. We had Admiral Byrd. He explored the North Pole. He explored the South Pole. And soon after he explored the South Pole, we had the Antarctic Treaty, where every nation in the world agreed that that land, we're not going to touch it except for scientific research purposes. Which I find to be amazing, that immediately after World War II, somehow we're all able to agree on this one agreement about a territory of land, which from Admiral Byrd's perspective says that there are vast resources of coal, uranium, there are tropical hotspots at the South Pole. And why all that matters, man, NASA, man, they're trying to convince us of a virtual reality as being reality, man. That's why they're pushing virtual reality the way they are. That's why they're eventually going to push the Mark of the Beast chip system to where no one can buy or sell unless they have the Mark of the Beast. And if that's like an RFID chip so that it like scans like your debit card, like your credit card, instead of, I mean, they already have, you scan your phone to charge it, and that's pretty damn close as far as I'm concerned. It's pretty close. But that chip would essentially give law enforcement the ability to just scan your hand now, and voila, now they know who you are. And essentially you could get a long-range thing on it to where you could be 10 feet away from somebody and still pick up who they are. Eventually it gets to a point where cameras like this could be hooked up all over the city, and they'll be able to track and monitor who everybody is and where they're following. And they already have that technology, though. Eagle Eye, man, that's a whole... And then, they just... Hollywood is set to literally subliminally program us into just accept, into like allowing what they tell us to come to fruition. Because the way magic works, man, they can't tell us what, they can't make something happen without telling us it's going to happen. Because if we just stand by and let them do what they say they're going to do, man, then we acquiesce to it, and that's essentially our silent consent. Because we're not standing up to it. Because we're not disagreeing with it. Because we're not deciding, hey, cabal, y'all need to die. You sitting there harvesting your adrenaline chromium over underground by a bunch of children and such that are all your sex slaves and all your... Nah, hell no. That can't happen no more. We ain't cool with that shit. The world ain't cool with that shit. But the people in charge, man, they want to keep that hidden and keep that under control as best they can, because that's a drug that gives them the high they've never felt before. And now they're starting to, from what I understand, they're starting to lose it. Now, perhaps that's false information. I'm not entirely sure, but I believe that based on the number of references I've heard from, that's kind of the story that's going on, is that what we see on CNN and USA Today and ABC, man, it's not exactly what's happening in the United States right now. And a lot of prophecy talks about like global... I don't really hear prophecy talk about global destruction. I hear prophecy talk about nights of darkness, or days of darkness. What, 10 days of darkness? Something like that. The lights have got to go out. We got to lose all electricity. Something about a new internet getting set up. Something about a new banking system getting set up. Man, essentially, I don't know. I saw Trump in a little Simpsons episode once. He's supposed to be assassinated 21st of November this year. 2021. I don't know if that's actually true. I mean, 12/21 of 2021. I mean, no, 11/21 of 2021. My bad, sorry. 11/21 of 2021. At least if that episode is sort of correct about prophesying stuff, but man, they even prophesied Trump becoming president the first time, and they prophesied a lot of other things. Not really prophesied, more or less told you that this is what they're orchestrating. Because even Mr. Burns and such, man, that's a replica of Lord Jacob Rothschild. That's how he likes to be addressed, Mr. Reptilian Dude. I don't know, I've seen a video of that dude shape-shifting in his eyes and shit. And the Queen's the same way, the Queen of England's the same way, and yet we're... For whatever reason, we're indoctrinated to look at them as the Queen of England, and like our country doesn't have a king or a queen or a monarch, but yet when they die, man, we're told that news like it fucking matters to us. And there's plenty of shit that happens in our own government we don't know nothing about. And actually, I think that's most curious, is that they reference the Queen of England and the Prince as like her husband. Essentially, I don't know, Prince, I believe, is a less status than a king. They don't have a king in England, they have a queen. And I feel like that's more, man, they sit there and speak it in plain sight, the agenda they're trying to push. The whole Queen Jezebel type mentality of man-woman relationships, man, of the destruction of the family, man. If I Were the Devil by Steve Harvey, man, I recommend that little 3-minute explains all of it. He's going to destroy the families, he's going to have everyone at war with it. And man, the way to do that is to completely turn God's vision of the family upside down backwards. Tells man to love his wife. Tells the woman to submit to her husband. And he tells the man to love his wife as Christ loved the church. I've seen toxic masculinity. I've seen that want to sit there and take that as an argument that now the woman has to be a slave type of mentality, and he can be this little like prick asshole and go do some all sorts of crazy stupid shit, and like she's supposed to just like hang on because of a submit to your husband type of mentality. Man, I take that to an extreme. Man, there is a respectable submission. Man, you submit yourself to God, and you ain't in fear of Him like you have to be obedient. And like, no, the devil comes and acts that way and like tries to put on this whole display of power and I'm all this great, that, and the other, and you're supposed to bow and worship me, otherwise I'm going to do all this heinous shit to you. The devil does that. God does not, man. God loves you unconditionally, man. You saw that in Jesus Christ when He came here, and man, He dealt with the Pharisees, man. The Pharisees, the people, the religious elect, the people who came and attacked Him all the time and like checked Him on His shit. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? The law says this, the law says that. And He always had the most simple response. He never spoke to those people in disdain. He never spoke to them in contempt. He never spoke down to them. The issue was, I feel like they always came to Him speaking down to Him. They've got this sort of sense like because they hold a certain position, like the Vatican, the Pope, or the leaders of the free world, or the leaders of the UN, or the leaders of... Because they have that sort of position that somehow now like their authority trumps His spiritual authority. Because Jesus came speaking with authority. But He didn't come speaking with an oppressive authority. He spoke with an authority as if it comes from the Creator Himself. Because He wasn't coming down to prove a point, man. If He was coming down to prove a point, He would have been born in a palace, and He would have ruled with a golden rod, and He would have like destroyed a bunch of stuff. But man, the first time not. He came to be a slave. He came to be a servant. He came to be kicked on. He came to be beaten. He came to be prodded. He came to be tortured. He came to be ridiculed. He came, the whole first time, He came to take on all the punishment of what sin requires. Sin brings death. He took the punishment of all that stuff. And He still loved people who did it to Him. Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. And they ridiculed Him all the way up to the cross, man. Even while He's laying there on the cross, they still did shit to Him. Mocking Him, thinking He was funny. Man, you claim you're this, get yourself down, how about that? Man, He was never meant to do that, man. It spoke in Genesis, actually, man. If you go to the Hebrew, the very first verse in Genesis actually prophesies, speaks that this is all going to happen. The I Am comes down in flesh, man, into the world to be a sacrifice, to renew the world, to save it. And all those who call upon the Lord Jesus Christ shall be saved, who are blessed and saved by the Lamb. Man, you can do the same thing. Everyone can. You like turn to Jesus Christ today, man. But then there's a certain part, like, just because you speak with your mouth that Jesus is your Lord, man, doesn't make Him your Lord. Because even Himself, like He says that many in those days, many will come to me and say, Lord, Lord. Like, we did miracles in your name. You're our Lord, man. Well, like, we know you. And he looked at them like, no, you don't. I don't know you. Because the whole time you were going around preaching my name and doing shit, like you always did it for yourself. You used my name to bring yourself up, or to bring yourself glory, or to make yourself wealthy, or to make yourself rich, man. I wanted a relationship with you. This is God the Father, man. He wants a relationship, a daily prayer type relationship. If it's got to be in silence, man, do it in silence. If you got to actually sit there, get on your knees, and like hands together and speak out loud so you can hear yourself, man, do that. And everyone's got their own sort of way, man. Plenty of people, you can do it while driving. You can do it while, grocery shopping and stuff like that's probably not the best idea because there's people around. You still can, man. You can do it all in a moment's notice, man. You see people get hurt, man. Pray for them kind of stuff. Actually, like, take action if you have the ability to at the moment. But, man, if you're in a situation where you don't have the ability, man, put the prayers out. Man, I pray for the President of the United States right now. They're like, Lord be with them, man. Like, open their eyes, man. Take care of them, man. They're the leader of this country right now, man. The Lord direct their path. the way you need it to. Because, man, the Lord sets everyone in charge the way he needs to be. He put Hitler in charge, he put Solomon in charge, he put David in charge. And Saul was the king, all for specific reasons. Even though, yes, Saul was fucked up and he ended up like becoming a laughing stock at the end of his life and like ruined his whole legacy, so that David could then take over. And then Solomon came forward, man, he still did all sorts of little heinous shit. But what's the difference, man? Like, even though Solomon like worshipped devils of the concubines that he became enchanted by, in love with, I would say more enchanted, because, man, they worshipped gods of Baal, they worshipped Molech. And when Solomon, he sat there and he started constructing altars for these gods. But the thing is, the Solomon, like, wisest among all, wisest man ever to live, allegedly. Something along those lines. Quite wise. He was known for his wisdom. And he had a connection with God, but once he actually separated from that, he gave that up, man. He gave it up. It actually describes that the spirit left him the moment that he started, or I think it was as he like cut himself or something. He had to offer blood as a sacrifice for the gods, and he wanted the females. He was enchanted by the females, so I mean that's what they asked for. And man, I've encountered some of them kind of ladies that, witches doing black magic. Been part of it where they sit down and like they're doing it in front of me, and they've got another person there, and they got the little cauldron, and they're doing their chanting and like burning shit. And I've like, they invited me over, and I'm like, what the fuck? Nah, this chick had a real fancy with me, and it was nuts. I gotta say, man, that's one of the hardest types of witchcraft I've actually endured in a certain way. Like, I don't know, I had the belief going in that, man, if the Lord actually wants me to go into the valley of the shadow of death just to touch one soul, that he could put me into the depths of hell and yet still pull me out. And if by going into the depths of hell it means I'm partaking in certain, I don't know, I feel like life and going through drug addictions and trauma and all that, man, a lot of that's phases kind of were like intended. Like, you can't have a traumatic event happen yesterday and expect that you're going to be perfectly fine today. I mean, there is a coping type mechanism, and depending on this depth of the wound, based on who it is that's involved, what all they did to you, because, man, people that have grown up being sexually molested by their father, being sexually molested by their uncle, being like, that shit's hard. Like, I heard some of that shit rough. No, that shit's tough. That shit's dark. So those kind of stories that aren't really the ones you gotta be telling people, but on another token, like, that's real. And I myself haven't actually endured it, man. The experience I have, man, this chick's doing all the spells, and like, she comes from something like that. So it gives me a better understanding to recognize that even though, yes, these people are being narcissistic, and yes, these people are only thinking for themselves, man, but essentially they're still caught in a mode of survival from their youth. Because, no, in my youth, man, yeah, that's all it was, survival, man. I knew I wasn't safe at home. I stayed in my bedroom most of the time and played video games on my computer. Because I wasn't safe at home. It was constant criticism, constant complaining, man, you farting, man. They sat there and like, ugh, disgusting, you, like, ugh, what the fuck are you doing that for, man? It's like, damn, what the fuck? It's a normal human process. And you all got this nasty ass attitude about it, but then when you all do it, it's like a laughing matter, and it's perfectly justified because like you're the adults or some shit. And no, the healing is when you can actually start talking